Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Education, SOE, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Arts, Distance Education, MDE, First Year. MDE 518 Educational Communication Technologies, Revised Block-3 Content Creation Tools. Unit 14, Interactive Multimedia.
14.0 Introduction, Information and Communication Technologies, ICTs, have touched every sphere of life. Technologies have always brought significant changes in human lives. ICTs are also affecting human lives in many ways. If we focus on positive aspects of these technologies, we realize that almost every field of a civilized life is enriched by ICTs. It may be our financial transactions or traveling facilities, or it may be 24 hours available entertainment. ICTs plays a major role in our life. If we exploit every new technology to enrich our lives in all possible ways, where are we in the field of teaching and training? Does an Indian learner use computerized educational material to the extent to which he uses computer for playing games, sending emails to friends, and posting on online communities such as Orkut and Facebook? Does the number of quality educational multimedia exceed the number of available CDs and DVDs of songs, videos and games? If the answer is no, then that means teaching learning field is not exploiting available technologies effectively. As significant and responsible contributors of the field of education, we need to develop effective, interactive material for our learners so that learners can spend quality time learning and comprehending complex concepts and skills. Let us discuss here how we can be skilled in this area of computerized interactive learning. Material 14.1 Learning Outcomes. After working through this unit, you are expected to be able to times define interactive multimedia, IMM, times describe the advantages of multimedia, times explain the principles of designing educational multimedia, and times evaluate interactive multimedia resources for learning. 14.2 Interactive Multimedia, Box 14.1, Miss Swara's class. Miss Swara wanted to teach geometrical shapes to her third standard students. She had an innovative idea in mind. She took help of her sister who is an animator and brother who is multimedia developer. They all spent a lot of time and developed a multimedia package. The package starts with a page which has different geometrical shapes on the first screen. Once clicked on any of the shapes, a new module opens which is meant for learning that shape. E.g., if learner clicks on shape of cylinder, a module on cylinder opens. A cylindrical cartoon jumps and starts talking to learners. Many objects of the cylindrical shape appear and start giving information about this shape. Many games and activities based on the module appear on many of the screens. Children could learn the topic with enjoyment. Multimedia, as the term suggests, is combination of media. It is the use of multiple types of media, audio, video, graphics, animations and text within a single desktop computer program. In other words, multimedia means the processing and presentation of media into or more media. J. Ladhal, 1992, defines multimedia in terms of representation and communication of information. According to him, multimedia is text, natural language, pictures, including symbolic graphics, cartoons, animations, and both still and moving real-world images, and sound, speech and ambient. Though multimedia is a combination of two or more media, it is not just mixing of media. Vaughan, 1996, uses the term woven combination. According to Ravitt and Late, 1997, the quality of a multimedia package depends on what is combined and how. The critical factor would be the way in which the media are made to work together to create an elaborated whole. Now let's think about difference between a mere slide presentation and an interactive material as described in box 14.1. Interactivity is the extent to which one can interact actively. Mere linear presentation cannot provide interactivity according to Mitra and Mitra, 1998. Teaching programs of the future will detect a student's learning style, psychosocial characteristics, physiological limitations and other parameters important to learning. It will then use its experimental data about other students it has taught to decide on a teaching strategy. Finally, it will reach into its bank of educational materials to find appropriate content for the teaching task at hand. Interactive teaching strategies may involve a range of activities to engage learners. These include making choices and decisions, composing, taking notes and making evaluations and judgments, constructing, drawing and controlling. Alessi and Trollope, 2001, Interactive Educational Multimedia is the multimedia which gives active learning experience. This active learning may not mean only choosing modules, browsing or navigating, but it should give chance to stimulate thinking and taking prompt decisions. Interactive multimedia should ask for learners' response based on the comprehension of content and provide immediate feedback so as to check learners' progress, to quote Perrin, 1991. Interactivity is not pressing a key to advance to the next page. Interactivity requires meaningful feedback to each learner, response leading towards an essential goal. Interactivity of this kind can be achieved in many different ways. Following guidelines for increasing interactivity in multimedia programs have been summarized by Stemler, 1997. 1. Provide opportunities for interaction at least every 3 or 4 screens or, alternatively, about 1 per minute. 2. Chunk the content into small segments and build in questions with feedback, periodic reviews, and summarize for each segment. 3. Ask as many questions as possible without interrupting the continuity of the instructional flow. Ask a question after, but not immediately, following the related content. Ask students a question that they can answer based on previously learned knowledge. Ask students to apply what they have learned rather than memorize and repeat answers. 4. Use rhetorical questions during instruction to get students to think about the content, to stimulate students' curiosity, and as a natural transition between frames. 5. Consider designs where the learner is not presented with information in a linear format, but rather discovers information through active exploration in the program. 4.2.1 Characteristics. Interactive multimedia as a self-instructional mode possesses some characteristics which resemble with the characteristics of programmed instruction and self-instructional modules in open learning. The characteristics of interactive multimedia are: 1. Specific target group. Being an individualized instructional mode, IMM is developed for a well-defined target group after analyzing characteristics of the group. Content, language, examples, illustrations, cultural details, volume of explanation and also multimedia inputs, example, sound effects, animations, need to be designed specially for the defined target group. 2. Specific objectives. Terminal behavioral objectives are specified as a first step towards the development of IMM. It is followed by developing evaluation tools to assess the learner with reference to these objectives. Defining objectives, thus, ensures reliable learning results. 3. Content in small chunks. IMM presents content in the form of very small steps at a time. IMM proceeds with the next chunk only after assuring comprehension of that concept or information or skill. This Stepwise learning helps learner to attain mastery over the content. The content is sequenced using maxims such as from simple to complex, concrete to abstract, examples to rules concept which help in better conceptualization and comprehension. 4. Learner, controlled and adaptive mode. IMM provides optimum control to the learner. It can be designed in such a manner that progressing to the next step, navigation facility, access to submodules, selection and speed of multimedia inputs like audio, video, and even the mode of learning, presentation or simulation or drilling can be controlled by the learner. 5. Interactivity as a self-instructional strategy. IMM, as the name suggests, is also activity-oriented strategy seeking frequent and unambiguous response from learner at every step. IMM can provide for active response in terms of question answers, solving quizzes, puzzles, as other non-computerized material may provide. Apart from this, IMM can create environment for creative and experiential learning through modeling and simulation mode. 6. Immediate feedback and reinforcement. Being an electronic device, IMM provides immediate confirmation of every response of learner. A well-designed IMM provides corrective feedback to the learners that help in effective learning. Reinforcement techniques with attractive multimedia strategies enhance motivation level and sense of accomplishment at every small step. IMM may also arrange for clues, help, instructions for explorations and ultimately reward the learner for his adventures. 7. Validated program. IMM is generally prepared for wider use and therefore needs to be validated. Empirical validation of IMM assures for its accuracy. IMM also generally covers optimum content with adequate information, extensive illustrations, and wider scope for practice. 8. Multimedia elements. Multimedia inputs such as graphics, animations, sounds, video make IMM motivating, which arouse and maintain learners' interest to a great extent. Apart from being interesting, it can be more informative and elaborative. Being a combination of media, IMM becomes self-explanatory and appealing to more than one sense. It can create a virtual world for learners to play, explore and experiment in. Rare and complex experiences such as working with microscopic elements, three-dimensional objects, experiments involving risks, universal objects, complex processes can be made available through IMM. 9. Advanced technology. Advanced technologies such as digital video simulations add to the effectiveness of IMM. IMM can provide for easy access to the wealth of support material such as net-based archives, museums, databases, reviews, glossary, etc. In brief, interactive multimedia can bring in a revolutionary change in the field of education if designed carefully and systematically. 4.2.2 Strengths and limitations. Strengths. If we consider all major characteristics of interactive multimedia, we can identify strengths of this kind of material offered to us due to each of the characteristics. Let us perform an exercise. Table 14.1 gives strengths of interactive multimedia based on the characteristics. Table 14.1 Characteristics and strengths of IMM. Characteristic strength of IMM. Learner controlled material. It allows learner to learn by its own pace. Active learning helps learner to comprehend the concepts in better way. Interactivity. Interactivity keeps learner active throughout the learning process and makes the learning more meaningful. It helps in better understanding and retention. Validated program. Since the IMM are validated by implementing on a large sample of learners, it assures quality and accuracy of the material. Expert validation discards chances of errors. Multimedia elements. All multimedia elements enable multisensory learning. it helps learners to visualize the learning experiences and makes learning concrete. Advanced technologies allow us to provide varied and more relevant experiences. It allows game mode and simulation mode possible. Learners can themselves explore and experiment with the help of the advanced technologies limitations. Even though interactive multimedia material is proved very effective in learning, the media itself has some limitations. If we understand these limitations, it will help us in planning for the use of this material in the teaching-learning process. Let us discuss a few limitations. Which of the following objectives skills do you think can be best learnt by using interactive multimedia packages? A. Measuring angles. B. Properties of magnetism. C. Constructing triangles. D. Latitudes longitudes. E. Volcano. F. Swimming with backstrokes. G. Freedom struggle in India. H. Removing puncture of a tire. I. Developing respect for elders. If you think that developing multimedia for A, B, D, E and G will be more meaningful, you are absolutely right. Packages for the skills mentioned in C, F, and H require of support actual practical experience. Attitudinal change and value development can be supported and promoted by effective packages, but it is a long-term process and these objectives may not be achieved by using one-hour multimedia. Thus, we can conclude that many skills in affective and psychomotor areas need experiences other than IMM. We also need to remember here that many innovations are being done in this area to develop some skill-based software supported by real-life simulations. Simulated machines are used for skill development. A major limitation for use of IMM is the infrastructural facility. Though IMM prove very effective in learning, it is always assumed that learners will be provided computer systems for using these IMM packages. Reaching to unreached can be achieved only by providing them computer systems as well as electricity if we wish to give them exposure through IMM. Before making this an issue wherever experts discuss uses of computerized material and e-learning resources, we also need to remember that there are many children and schools equipped with such infrastructure but lack quality material. Today children are using available computer systems just to play games and to learn topic from computer education such as DTP and programming. Development of quality multimedia material is teamwork. As you will proceed through this module, you will understand the developmental process in detail. At the end of the module, you will agree that it is a teamwork and involves cost. If planned and implemented thoughtfully, institutes can make the whole exercise cost-effective, otherwise development of IMM is an expensive affair. Collaboration within institutes will always prove beneficial in this area. We may thus conclude that though there are a few limitations to IMM, one can find ways and solutions to overcome many of these limitations. These limitations may not hinder the thought of using such material in the teaching-learning process. 14.3 Theories in Interactive Multimedia Design. Before we discuss how to develop the kind of material Ms. Swara, Box 14.1, developed for her learners, we need to discuss the theoretical and psychological aspects of human learning and human cognition. These aspects need to be considered while planning for multimedia learning activities. Two major theories in the field of human cognition which help us in designing multimedia are cognitive load theory and dual coding theory. Let us discuss each of these theories in detail. 4.3.1 Cognitive load theory. The moment we use the term multimedia, we accept that more than one medium are being used in the learning material. We need to think whether these multiple media are going to burden our learners' cognition. How does a human being receive and process information? Is multisensory information processed simultaneously? Does it affect smooth cognition? Let us see what cognitive load theory says about this. Our working memory has limited capacity. If a lot of information is needed to be processed, this memory experiences cognitive load. New media experiences may engage learners in getting excited about these varied experiences. This excitation affects comprehension of the real learning content. Box 14.2 John's Science CD. John's father has bought him beautiful multimedia packages for learning concepts of science. The package has an interesting laboratory environment. This is not a common lab, but a fantastic lab full of exciting magical devices. A few animations running continuously on the screen make John stuck to the package. He loves the way Professor Magnificent, the scientist as a narrator, speaks in the package. Sound effects used are also enchanting. John is very happy with package. What his father found is John loves to view the package with a lot of pictures and animations, but he can hardly learn anything out of it. He hardly concentrates on the content. Many multimedia packages have the limitation described in box 14.2. Multimedia developers design beautiful graphical scenarios. Sometimes, these graphics are so attractive that the attention is focused on the graphics rather than the content. If we plan a continuously running animation on the screen, learners experience cognitive load and that affects their comprehension. Too much of text can also work as a load. Brief and precise information, attractive but non-crowded screens, pleasant and logically arranged screen designs help reduce this cognitive load on the learner. If the entire screen is full of scenario, text used on the screen should be distinct and very clearly shown on the background. Semi-transparent text boxes or converting scenario background in the watermark helps in such cases. User control is considered as a major strength of an IMM. The feature of user control needs to be carefully exploited. If a user lacks previous knowledge or is still younger to use various choices provided in the user interface, access user control may confuse the learner, e.g. if a drop-down menu is provided on each screen for a small child, it may click the drop-down menu and enter into another module unknowingly. The child will fail to understand how he has entered into the other module. This does not mean that there should always be fewer choices for interaction. Once a mature learner gets used to exploit choices provided for interactions, makes maximum use of these choices. The learner gets used of these choices and, hence using various choices becomes part of his/her long-term memory. It is often experienced that young learners get used to computer environment easily. Learners using various web tools find it easier to explore new tools without training. Design of user interface should be the result of proper learner analysis and goal analysis. Cautious use of elements will save learner from the cognitive load and will allow learner to transfer certain elements of learning into the long-term memory. 4.3.2 Dual coding theory. Though psychologists caution us about cognitive load theory, they also make us aware of dual coding function of our brain. It may appear after learning cognitive load theory that multimedia itself is responsible for cognitive load and hence should not be used. Dual coding theory tells us how our cognitive abilities process visual and verbal information, simultaneously allowing us to learn from rich experiences. Our working memory possesses two compartments of processing, one for verbal and the other for nonverbal information. It, therefore, processes both types of information simultaneously. the information needs to be related to each other and supplementary. For example, an animation can be run along with its audio explanation. It should be remembered that new text and changes in an animation cannot be viewed simultaneously, but if an audio is run, explanation of content can be heard as well as seen. More than one medium helps learner in cognition as it provides food for the visual and verbal compartments. Many a times, we go on explaining a particular concept or phenomenon till the learner understands it completely. The learner, here, needs to comprehend lengthy explanations and retain such a lengthy verbal explanations in his/her working memory. A still, graphical representation of the same knowledge or a smaller movie. Animation, however, becomes less in terms of time duration and helps the learner retain the knowledge in the working memory. On the other hand, pictures without labels or brief information may not help learner to understand the content. A brief verbal input may help the learner more. Thoughtful combination of verbal and visual inputs will thus prove more effective. If a complex picture or animation is presented along with a long text, it causes split attention effect. Presenting pictures in parts along with only a few related textual explanations will help learner comprehend the concept. Dual coding theory, thus, helps the designer to use and arrange visual and verbal elements thoughtfully, allowing learner to comprehend and retain new knowledge. 14.4 Principles of Interactive Multimedia Design. Once decisions regarding content are taken by the instructional designer, storyboard writer needs to arrange multimedia elements carefully. We will discuss some of the principles of multimedia design evolved out of the research work done by Mayer 2001, 2005, and others. Multimedia principle: use words and graphics rather than words alone. Which of the figures, 14.1 or 14.2, helps more in understanding the meaning and role of magnetic keepers? Certainly, use of text in combination with graphics leads to better learning success than using text alone. So, the visualization of content along with the verbal explanation should be used at maximum. Modality principle includes speech to explain, use of audio to explain graphics instead of mere on-screen text enhances understanding the visual element. It helps in expanding cognitive resources to simultaneously tap both visual and phonetic memory. Redundancy principle: use audio to explain an animation sequence rather than on-screen text. Learners learn better from animation and narration than from animation, narration and on-screen text. Appearance of on-screen text while the animation is run distracts learner and thus he may ignore the written content. When eyes are engaged viewing animation, it cannot be engaged in reading on-screen text simultaneously. Instead, audio may allow the learner to focus on the animation sequence while listening to the corresponding audio. Coherence principle: adding interesting material can hurt learning. Avoid using unnecessary texts, graphics, animation or sound in IMM only for the sake of making it attractive and decorative. Unrelated, decorative material distracts the learners from the actual learning objective. It not only distracts the learner, but also hinders the process of interpreting and comprehending the content. Contiguity principle: place corresponding words and graphics near each other. If text and related visuals are placed at separate places, learner needs to utilize its time and energy to search the related graphics. The cognitive efforts of relating corresponding elements are referred to as extraneous processing. While understanding the content, learner needs to shuffle between the textual content so as to refer to the graphic. If the content is explained using more than one screen, repeat the graphic element to avoid this shuffling. Even referring to previous graphic should be avoided while discussing a new graphic element. The previous graphic should be repeated again and placed near the new one instead. The principle also applies to the question, learner's response and its feedback. Let us also not forget to place directions for an exercise in the same frame available for the exercise. See figure 14. 3. You can see that the screen in Fig 14.2 presents steps of the procedure right beside the graph image. The questions asked about the image are presented beside it so as to interpret for responding. Even feedback appears close to the responses. This principle may lead to cluttering the screen. Cluttering may be avoided by use of pop-ups and breaking of text into more screens, keeping the graphic element constant. Segmentation principle. People learn better when information is presented in bite-sized segments. Break the content into small chunks. Procedures should be broken into separate screens for individual steps. This helps learners to follow instructions one by one. Comprehension of each small chunk also becomes easier in case of knowledge content. Refer to figure 14.4. Practice principle. Use of practice improves learning. Till the learner is actively engaged in the learning process, one cannot guarantee learning. Immediately after the new content is presented, learner should be put in an interactive situation where he will respond to the questions, exercises and/or activities. This will ensure comprehension and also allow learner to apply the learned knowledge and skills. See figure 14.5. We also need to remember not to present the entire content without any interaction. Apart from learning activities, practice exercises should also be distributed throughout the content instead of giving all exercises at the end of a module. The quantity of the exercises should depend on the nature, complexity of the content. More practice questions for an easy content will demotivate the learner, whereas complex content will require adequate practice. Personalization principle. Use conversational style. Your material is easier to understand when you address the readers directly. This increases personalization and helps learner to overcome feeling of being isolated. The IMM should create an environment in which the learner would feel interacting with the teacher. 14.5 Scripting for interactive multimedia. By now you might have realized that designing an effective interactive multimedia package keeping the principles in mind is not an easy task. It requires teamwork and extensive planning. A lot of analysis is required for the actual design and development of IMM. Once the analysis of need of the learners, content, task and resources is done, design phase starts with the identification of objectives and finalization of content outline along with the flowchart. The final stage of the design phase is script development phase. Let's discuss this stage in detail as it involves actual design process before development of the package on computer. Script writing may be done in two steps: designing storyline and designing storyboard. Designing storyline. Storyline is a continuous story developed as per the decided flow of content. Storyline mentions the instructional strategy we are visualizing for a particular storyboard. Many a times experienced creative teachers and subject matter experts poses excellent ideas regarding treatment to a topic, even though the teacher knows how the concept can be explained differently. He may not know how to write storyboard for the multimedia development team. It becomes easier for such a person to write storyline. The storyline gives us how the subject content shall be treated in presentation. Designing storyboard. Storyline is further translated into storyboard. A storyboard is a document that contains sequential detailed description of the screens for the visualized interactive multimedia. A storyboard is referred by the entire project development team thereafter. Storyboard specifies development responsibilities for each one from the multimedia team. Hence, precise detailing of every screen is crucial in storyboarding. Storyline is an essay-type document describing the flow of sequence as per the visualized treatment, whereas storyboard has a format with place for many elements, mainly the multimedia elements. 4.5.1 Elements of a storyboard. Activity 14.1 If the storyboard is a document which is referred by a multimedia development team, what should be the main elements of any storyboard in your opinion? Tick mark the elements you think should be included in a detailed storyboard. 1. Objectives. 2. On-screen text. 3. Description of graphics. 4. Blueprint for tests. 5. Details of audio effects and voiceover. 6. Description of video. 7. Menu page. 8. Description of animation. 9. User interface design. 10. Content analysis. 11. Sequence of multimedia components on each screen. 12. Instructions for interactivity. 13. Feedback. 14. Instructions to users. 15. Learner analysis. Note 4. 10. 15 are not required. Storyboard is the final output of the design phase. If you reflect on the analysis and all tasks till designing storyline, you will realize that we do not need analysis details to be reworked at this stage. The final Dane is handed over to the development team and they will simply develop multimedia by referring to the storyboard. They may not be interested in all analysis details. Storyboard is a guideline for all members of the development team including editors. If we visualize needs of a multimedia development team, then the following elements of the storyboard can be identified. Times text. Text in the storyboards includes text of content which you wish to show on multimedia screens. It also includes instructions to be displayed for the learner. There may be labels of diagrams. Readable, precise and user-friendly text will make the package effective. Instructions regarding placement and sequence of text appearance also need to be mentioned. Times graphics, though the storyboard writer is not expected to draw required graphics, he needs to describe the intended graphics so that the graphic designer draws or obtains the same. Photographs can be downloaded from open resources if the multimedia is not aimed at commercial use. Rough sketch of the graphic always helps graphic designer to visualize idea in the mind of the writer. Times audio. Audio in the multimedia may be voiceover of the text on the screens. Other than reading text, audio can be used for oral instructions, music, sound effects, etc. Writer needs to specify audio elements so that multimedia developers acquire the same or get those recorded. 87. Times animation. All of us know that animations are powerful tools in the hands of teachers. Wherever writer visualize animation sequences, need to describe the same extensively so as to enable animators create accurate and effective animations. Times video. Many a times, video of real situation proves more effective than the animations. These videos can be recorded if the writer describes her expectations. Times user interface design, general screen layout, arrangement of title bars, navigation buttons and position of text, graphics and animations can also be suggested by the storyboard writer. Briefly, a storyboard is a document that contains sequential detailed description of the screens that will constitute the instructional unit to be developed. Requirements per screen are mentioned in the storyboard. Elements such as text, graphics, animation, audio and video are provided in any storyboard. While writing a storyboard, the following precautions are necessary. 1. The concept should not be presented in a deductive manner. The learner should be given an opportunity to derive concept by viewing examples, solving small assignments based on these examples, deriving common characteristics, etc. The definition of the concept would naturally emerge as a result of various exercises done by the learner. It should be assured that the learner has learnt, comprehended the characteristics of the concept, and then he comes across the definition. 2. Each frame should contain a small chunk of information or a small activity. A single frame should not contain more than one content point. 3. Language of the script should be interactive in nature. Language should be conversational and appealing. Authoritative way of delivery is not advisable. Analogies about day-to-day experiences and humor are useful. 4. Illustrations should be widely used. Mere abstract, theoretical information need not be presented through multimedia instruction. All elements of multimedia should be exploited for explaining the content. Use of appropriate graphics, animations, video and sound make the multimedia effective. 5. Language of the multimedia package should be simple. Passive structures should be avoided. Simple vocabulary and simple structures, small sentences, small paragraphs make the multimedia package readable. 6. Interaction is the keyword of an effective self-instruction. Frames of multimedia should not look like the pages of electronic book with colorful text and pictures. Every subunit must include some activity, requiring learners' active response. Activities and exercises keep the learners busy, compel them to try and comprehend the content and apply the same to newer situations, sustain their attention and keep their thinking process and creativity working. 14.6 Software for multimedia. Software or authoring system to develop multimedia depends on the nature of the package planned. These packages can either be developed by skilled programmers or expert multimedia developer. Depending on the requirements, we may need times graphic designer, times programmer, times data entry operator, times audio editing expert, times animator, times 3D modeling expert, and times multimedia developer. As mentioned above, programming expert can develop a package using programming language and scripting such as Visual Basic, Java, etc. A multimedia developer may not be expert in programming languages, but may be skilled in using ready multimedia development packages. Software such as Blender, Flash, Authorware, etc. are useful for the development tasks. We need a few more software for graphic design, photo editing, audio editing, animation creations, 3D modeling and complex systems for simulation designs. The more our script is complex, the more expertise we need. You will now agree that multimedia development is a team effort. Mere presentation development skills are not useful for development of interactive multimedia, and hence teacher may depend on such a team instead of trying to acquire all skills themselves. Truly interactive package development is a time-consuming task and teachers need not spend their time in the actual development. Effective script writing is, however, needed today for our learners, and if teachers develop skill of writing good scripts, it will contribute significantly to this ICT-driven society. 14.7 Evaluation of interactive multimedia. The last stage of development of any material for wider use is evaluation. The evaluation of any interactive multimedia to find out its effectiveness is done at 3 levels. 1. Assessment of learners after learning through interactive multimedia. 2. Evaluation of interactive multimedia by experts in the relevant fields, i.e. subject matter experts, multimedia experts and instructional design experts. 3. Reaction of learners to the package. Assessment of learners after learning through IMM. All IMMs are designed in light of some well-defined objectives. We need to evaluate the IMM in light of the same objectives. This can be achieved by assessing learner performance after learning through IMM. Determining assessment guidelines is very important. Jolliffe et al. 2001 mentions the following reasons for providing tests: times to give objectivity to observation, times to elicit behavior under relatively controlled conditions, times to sample performances of which the learner is capable, times to obtain performances and measure gains relevant to goals or standards, times to apprehend the unseen or unseeable, i.e. person's attributes, values or developmental levels, times to detect the characteristics and components of behavior, times to predict future performance, times to make data always available for feedback and decision-making. Assessment strategies for learners can be planned as a part of the package, and/or a set of tests can also be prepared other than the IMM. Questions, activities, quizzes embedded in IMM or after every section provide immediate feedback about how much is achieved by the learner during the learning process. If tests are planned after every session, the learner can be guided at the end of the session about his mastery of that subcontent. The learner may be guided regarding the need for revision. Pretests also can be embedded in the package at the entry point of each module, which would not allow learner to learn a particular module if entry-level objectives are not achieved. Already, a final test at the end may reveal the learner about his overall mastery over the content or the task and guide him whether he should proceed with the next topic or revise the same again. A written or oral test would test the retention of the content given after a short period evaluation by experts. To test the content validity of the package, it needs to be evaluated by experts. The subject experts can evaluate the content with reference to objectives, and multimedia experts can give suggestions about software properties. Bruntlett, 1999, has developed a set of criteria for evaluating CD-ROMs based on the criteria developed by British Educational Communications and Technology Agency, BECTA. The criteria mentioned by him are content, coverage, currency and accuracy, general applicability, specific suitability to subject, learning style, teacher or pupil resource, appropriateness of reading, user interface, clarity, structure and help features, indexing and navigation, presentation, quality and size of images, audio and video, control and quality, level and type of interactivity, facilities, support, materials, what is the quality and extent of materials provided for pupils and the teacher, technical problems encountered, experience of use with pupils, etc. The relevant suggestions given by experts can be considered and necessary changes can be made before the field tryout of the package. Reactions of learner to IMM. Interactive multimedia is the strategy developed for learners to be used by them without interventions of instructors. It becomes very essential to find how they react to the end product. IMM, which appeals to the learners of various learning styles, individual characteristics and interests, can become effective. If the learner does not think that the content coverage, illustrations, are adequate, those can be reworked. If multimedia components are not considered as relevant, attractive, those can be edited or deleted. Activities and assessment tools can be altered if found complex, time-consuming or boring by the learners to collect data about each of these components. Evaluation tool in the form of rating scale or opinionaire for the learners can be developed. The tool should not contain too many items. The learners may get bored or exhausted by filling lengthy tools. The items should be specific, clear and unambiguous, so that learners clearly know what and how to respond. The items should not be suggestive to get obvious responses, e.g. were the pictures not childish? Or the language was a bit difficult to understand, isn't it? Though the stage of evaluation of IMM is implemented only after the preparation of the package, strategies have to be planned before the task of preparation. Assessment tools and evaluation proforma can be prepared at this stage. 14.8 Summary. Let us briefly revise contents of this module. In this unit, we discussed issues related to the development of interactive multimedia packages. We first discussed characteristics, strengths and limitations of IMM packages so as to help us take decisions whether to use IMM and when. We learned that strengths of IMM are many over the limitations, and we can definitely achieve effective learning through use of IMM in many learning situations. The IMM development is a systematic and serious effort, and hence, understanding of psychological basis for such developments is essential. Theories such as dual coding theory and cognitive load theory, various design principles provide us valuable guidelines for IMM development. We also discussed process of scripting for interactive multimedia, in which we discussed how to describe various multimedia elements in the storyboard. Though we discussed about various software being used for the multimedia development, one needs keep in mind that new software keep on being introduced, and hence one should update knowledge about current trends before taking decision regarding software. Evaluation of any IMM before purchase or wider use is essential. Since we have discussed several elements and principles in detail, it will be easier for you to decide criteria or refer to established standards for evaluation of multimedia. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.